Om Namah Shivaya. Ribhu reveals the nature of Brahman, the supreme reality, showing that the self is only that. In the course of doing such, in this chapter 8 of Ribhu Gita, he explains to Nadaga the nature of a jivanmukta, one who is liberated while alive. We'll take up this evening starting with verse 17 of chapter 8. Ribhu says, "Ears I do not have, nose I do not have, eyes I do not have, tongue I do not have, mind I do not have. He who is definite in this is called a jivanmukta." The senses are the instruments of perception, the mind that of conception. That which you are always. Your nature does not undergo any change, ever. That which is truly yours is yours always. So what does a jivanmukta have? He has nothing, but only himself. That self is the infinite and the eternal. So he has, or is, the reality. What does he not have? That which is unreal, that which he is not. Ears, nose, eyes, tongue, etc. Mentioning these is indicative of the senses. You should know the truth about yourself. You are not an object of sense perception. You cannot be seen, you cannot be heard, touched, etc. And you are not the senses themselves. You are not the seeing, the hearing, the touching, etc. And you are not some sort of sensing entity, one who has seeing, who has hearing, who has touching. If any of these were you, they would be with you always. If any of these were truly yours, you would not be without them even for a moment. But that is not the experience of anyone. The self stands beyond the senses. And one who knows himself as the self and does not confuse himself with the senses, no longer taking the senses to be the determination of reality, is liberated even while alive. Similar is it with the mind. He says, "The mind I do not have." Whatever is conceived in thought is not the self. The activity of thinking vritti, meaning to move, or a mode, or a thought. The activity of thinking is not yourself, nor are you a thinker, a conceiver of ideas. If you were any such thing, that would be the case for you always. If the mind were really yours, you would never be without it, even for a moment. But that is not the experience of anyone. The mind rises and sets, appears and disappears. You remain. One who has no confusion regarding the mind, neither taking it to be real nor taking it to be himself, is a jivanmukta. He is liberated while alive. Verse 18. I have no body. I have no distinguishing marks. I have no cause. I have no fourth state. He who is established in himself thus is called the jivanmukta. The first phrase is, I have no body. The truth regarding the body and the self is simply this. The self is not the body. The self is not located in the body. And the self does not possess a body. You should determine this with certainty for yourself by profound self-inquiry. Realizing the nature of your existence, which is absolutely bodiless. That is, not in relation to a body whatsoever. The existence of the self is one thing. The body is another, though we may say the body has no existence apart from the self. To mix the two up is to confound the reality and the unreal. Such is ignorance. One who knows that he is not the body, that he does not even have a body, he knows the truth. He is established in the self. And he who is established in himself thus is called a jivanmukta. What is bodiless is yourself, not another thing, but yourself. I have no body. I have no distinguishing marks. For something that is objective, we can append to it a definition. There are distinctive characteristics of all objective things by which we determine what they are, the number of them, etc. But the self is entirely formless, not the existence of something, but just existence itself, which is innately transcendent of all name and form. So he says, I have no distinguishing marks. There is no quality, no attribute of the self. Inquire and know this for yourself, perceiving how every notion of this, like this, that, like that, etc., have nothing to do with your essential being, the reality of the self. That which has no distinguishing marks is eternal and absolutely one. For that, the qualityless multiplicity is impossible. I have, the next phrase in verse 18, I have no cause. Everything, every activity, and such can be traced to some precedent cause. Something precedes it. But is there a cause for the existence that is the self? Being is uncaused, without birth, without beginning, without creation. Similarly, consciousness is uncaused. A thought may be said to have a preceding cause, but thought transcendent consciousness is uncaused. Similarly, the bliss of the self is without cause. In illusion, one thinks, this thing or that thing will make me happy, will bring me happiness, will be the cause of my happiness. But in truth, happiness is of the self. And as the existence and consciousness of the self are uncaused, likewise its bliss. That which is without cause is without beginning and without end. That is the eternal. I have no cause. There is no cause for the true I. And there's also no cause for all this illusion. Abide is one without a cause. Your existence is self-existent, not cause. And if you do not possess the cause in the form of the ego, ignorance is no more for you.
mentioned that there's no cause for the I and a cause for thought. So obviously, so the cause for thought would be that I.
What is being indicated is the reality, that which is truly I, does not have a cause. It is self-existent. And the ego cause, which is the start of all other ideas, is non-existent. So you should be without that cause as well. Clear enough?
So all that stuff that would follow is the same.
Without a cause, how can there be an effect? Without an ego, how can there be a world of illusion? Without one who imagines the individual, how can there be the effect of the mind and all the thoughts, etc.? He says, I have no cause, I have no fourth state. Being devoid of a fourth state implies, in this context of this verse, being devoid of the first three states as well.
Fourth state means Turiya?
Excuse me, I couldn't hear you.
Fourth state, Turiya?
Three, yes. Waking, dream, deep sleep. Such are the well-known three states. Liberation is transcendence of these three. So in relation to these three, such liberation has been called the fourth. But what is the nature of this fourth state? If it is indeed a state, it will come and go just as the other three, waking, dreaming, and sleeping. The actual nature of Turiya, or the fourth, is Turiyatita, beyond the fourth, transcendent of the notion of a state. That alone is what you are, that has no waking state, has no dreaming state, has no deep sleep, and has no fourth state either. It simply is, just as it is. Pure existence, pure consciousness is stateless. It is without conditions, and it is eternal. What in you is beyond all these states? This should be determined by deep inner inquiry. Who am I? If you are beyond the states, you are undefined by the content of those states. Undefined by them, you are not confined by them. Identify yourself only with that which is none of the three states, which does not have a fourth state, but just exists and is not a state at all. He who is established in himself thus is called a jivanmukta. To be established in the self, what does it mean? The self is not something remote from you. It is one's own self. To be established in reality, to be established in self-knowledge. What do these mean? Find it out by making your approach non-objective and inquiring deeply as to the nature of what in truth you are. That which is now perceived as the goal, in the end turns out to be your very existence. Verse 19. All this is none of mine. All that is none of mine. One who is established thus in Brahman alone is called a jivanmukta. All this and all that, however conceived, however perceived, whatever it may be, he says, none of that, none of this is mine. There is not even the least objective characteristic for yourself. That which can never be thought of at all as this or that. Which has neither low nor high, which is neither manifested nor unmanifested, which is no kind of thing whatsoever, but which alone exists, eternally so, is Brahman. One who is established thus in Brahman is Brahman, without the least trace of difference Brahman has no individuals, harbors no particles. Brahman is only Brahman. One who knows Brahman, is established in Brahman, is only Brahman. And one who is endowed with such realization is called a jivanmukta. Though he is called a jivanmukta, the truth is he is only Brahman. Verse 20. There is not even a little of mine. There is nothing of mine. There is no world for me, not a bit of it ever. I am myself. One who is thus established is called a jivanmukta. When Ribhu declares, this is not mine, that is not mine, nothing is mine. Here he says there's not even a little of mine, there is nothing of mine. He means it. Find this nothing for yourself, and you've really found something. That is dispossessed of all, which was only illusion. You find yourself to be the solitary existence. There is no world for me, not a bit of it, ever. I am myself. The word for myself, Eva, could be interpreted as indeed or alone. I am indeed or I am alone. There is no world for me. Is there a world for you? He says, not a bit of it, ever. What, after all, is the world? If it exists only as your knowledge of it, trace that knowledge to its source, and you will abide in that as that which is worldless. What is the world for you? If it is only your experience of it, Abandon the idea of it and trace the experiencing to its source. You will thus find that in which there is not the least objective thing ever. What is the world? If it is imagination based upon the individual or ego, then inquire, who am I? And in the realization of the utter, eternal non-existence of the ego, and the perpetual solitary existence of the self, be worldless. There is no world for me, not a bit of it, ever. As the unborn is the nature of the self, the uncreated is the nature of reality. I am myself. You cannot be other than the self, ever. One self, unalloyed existence, alone is. That alone is you. There is no other you, and there is no other existence. One who comprehends this by interior realization is thus established is called a jivanmukta, one who is liberated while alive. Verse 21. I have no time, I have no space, I have no objects, I have no being. There is no ablution or renunciation for me. Such a one is called a jivanmukta. If you had a mind and a body, you would have time. But the self is bodiless and without a mind. It is timeless. If you had a mind and a body, there would be space. Are you a body? Are you the mind? Then where is space and when is time? I have no objects. I have no being. Sthiti. Translated that as being, abiding, staying, being, anything like this. Be the meaning. You are the utterly non-objective. You have no objects. Your nature is absolute existence. You do not become or abide as anything. Rather are just as you are. that you are is timeless, spaceless, objectless, egoless. Similarly, he says, there is no ablution or renunciation for me. If there is something of which to be purified, if there is something to become free from, if there is something to get beyond, then there will be the need for renunciation and such. But for that which is one without a second, which is only itself, the self, that is, for Brahman itself, can we speak of ablution and renunciation? Does Brahman need to renounce something? Does Brahman become impure? Brahman is simply Brahman always. One who knows the truth of that is liberated even while alive. Last verse for tonight. For me there is no holy river, no God, no service to a God, and no shrine. I am without the least difference. He who is so is called a jivanmukta. If there is a world, if there is the realm of experience, then most certainly there are holy rivers, God, service or worship of God, shrines, etc. But the reality is utterly undifferentiated. I am without the least difference, he says. In that there is no world, so how can there be these other things? In that nothing is experienced by anyone at any time, so how could there be all these things? He who is so is called a jivanmukta. What is this is so? It is being without the least difference. The least difference the cause of all other differences, is the assumption of I. It is the basis for every other difference. Free of the I, one is differenceless. Without difference, what you worship is what you are. Without difference, that upon which you meditate is what you are. Without difference, what you are is only Brahman, the Absolute Self, without a trace of the ego or any of its possessions. Freedom from I, freedom from mine, is mukti, liberation indeed. Such liberation is freedom from all the imaginary bondage. It is not a state removed from oneself, but rather is the very nature of our existence. By profound, steady, intense interior inquiry, come to realize this. Accomplish such even in life, jivanmukta. Realize this while yet alive. There's no benefit in doing it later. That which would be realized later exists even now. Om Namah Shivaya.